Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome to London Studios. I'm your host Irfan Hashmi, and along with me is Mr. Najam Sethi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Saeed Sahab, Kulbhushan's verdict has been announced. Saeed Sahab, what made you so sure about this?
For the simple reason that we knew what the law was, it was very clear. The issue really was not whether he was a spy or not. That is for us to determine. The issue was not whether we gave him a fair trial or we didn't give him a fair trial in terms of our law. The issue was whether he was treated fairly or not, in the sense of whether he was granted his rights under the Vienna Conventions and various other international treaties and laws, i.e. given consular access and so on and so forth. So I think that is what was at stake, and here it's very clear. There were 16 judges apparently, and
Yes.
15 of them have sided on one side, and an ad hoc judge by the name of Mr. Gilani has voted against everything they've agreed on. And so their basic issues are, they say first of all, please retain, do not execute him, keep the execution, the sentence of execution in abeyance first. While it is in abeyance, please kindly review your judgment, and you may use your own law to review it. We are not saying to you, we cannot say to you what law you should use and what law you shouldn't use. That's for you under your own laws. But we think that a review is called for and a reconsideration is called for. But they've left it to you. The rest is all, okay, you know, you should have done this and you didn't do this, and you should have done this and you didn't do this. Not important. Two provisions are important. Number one, kindly review and reconsider. Why? Not that we think that you had no right to give the judgment that you gave, except that you didn't follow the certain procedures and you didn't give him his certain rights, whereby he could have defended himself better and so on. So therefore, kindly go over that again. Basically, this is a good judgment, in the sense that both Pakistan and India can now claim a win-win situation. Pakistan can say our judgment has not been overturned. We simply being asked to review it, we can come and say the same thing all over again. So it's not as though they've stopped us from, or they've interfered in our internal affairs. And so India can say, okay, we finally got consular access, and they were denying us this, and we've got it. And so both sides can claim a degree of victory. Now, the important thing is this: why did the court come up with this judgment? Why were we all saying, no problem, this is the maximum they can do? What you see, the thing is that if the International Court of Justice starts interfering in the internal affairs and constitutional requirements of countries, then every country will walk out of this convention. These are mutually agreed and respected procedures, where certain things cannot be challenged. If they had challenged our judgment, or if they had said, you cannot execute him, you have to free him, this judgment of yours is wrong, it should not have taken place in a military court, it should have done that, then that would have been stepping into our domain. By that criterion, then they would have to step into the domain of America, they would have to step into various other domains where international breaches of law can be positioned. So therefore, it was quite clear that the judgment would be very restricted, it would be very limited, and the court would respect the red lines under which it is constituted. It cannot go into areas where it has no right to go into. This was the maximum it could have done against Pakistan. It has done that, but the maximum is really of no consequence to us. If we now are looking for a rapprochement with India, this sets the ground for that rapprochement, because no one is a loser. Both sides can claim victory, and both sides can go back to the table and they can start talking about various issues. The Yadev issue was muddying the waters. We were bound to take a strong anti-India nationalist position. India was bound to demand certain things which they legitimately could not. And so therefore I think this will clear the path for further talks between Pakistan and India directly. You will recall that Imran Khan took an earlier initiative, if you recall, when he returned the pilot who was downed by Pakistan. That was a unilateral decision. It helped to calm down the temperatures and to bring them down. My sense is that there may be in the next 6 months or so there may be an understanding between India and Pakistan whereby Yadav is returned to India in return for some people who are being held by India in Indian prisons, alleged to be Pakistani spies and so on. So there may be a give and take. There is no way Pakistan will execute Yadav. He will not be executed. He will now be provided consular access, and the Indians will not have any complaints. This issue will die down, and one day, 6 months or a year from now, you will find out that negotiations between India and Pakistan have led to the release of Yadav on one hand and the release of A, B, C, D, who was in Indian custody on the other. And both sides are now talking about other more substantial issues now that they've got this issue out of the way.
So, sir, let's move from Hague to Islamabad. FIA has arrested Mia Tariq Mahmood. He's the same guy who has allegedly made the blackmailing video of Judge Arshad Malik, and his name is in the same affidavit. And according to FIA, he was trying to flee to Dubai when he was arrested. So what do you think of this whole situation, sir?
This is very interesting. Tariq Mahmood, the allegation against him will be by the FIA that you made this video. You, on behalf of the Nawaz Sharif family, you were blackmailing him in order to get him to look bad in the judgment that he'd given, and you got him into a compromising position, and you were blackmailing him to support the Sharif family's case. However, judge in the particular tape has gone on to say that he was being blackmailed by the intelligence agencies. So now the whole narrative, the government will want to change the narrative from being blackmailed by the intelligence agencies to give a judgment against Nawaz Sharif, to being blackmailed by the Sharifs to resile from the judgment that he'd given, or to weaken it, or to admit that he was under pressure. So apparently they've taken Tariq Mahmood to the magistrate, where he's recorded a statement saying that he's being tortured and he's being forced to make a confession, which he hasn't done so far. And they were compelled to do that because by law you have to produce him within 24 hours. But the thing is that so far it appears from the news reports that he has not yet admitted A, to making the video, and B, obviously to charge of blackmail. So we'll have to wait and see when he breaks down and what sort of statement is attributed to him, number one. Number two, on the basis of a mere confession, that is not sufficient evidence in any case. So they will have to find a lot of corroborative evidence. And then, of course, that evidence will be put against his own record, his own voice, his own picture on the video, in which he's actually saying that I was blackmailed by the intelligence agencies to give a judgment against Nawaz Sharif. So this is a tilt in the case. I don't think it will go too far because the evidence of the video will always override any evidence or any affidavit given either via a confessional statement or by a confessional statement before a magistrate, so that, or the affidavit that is already given, which the judge has given. So my sense is that this is harassment, this is intimidation, and it will not really go far in addressing the issues that the government is faced with or that the judiciary is faced with.
Maryam tweeted at the same time after the incident that, and she's saying that, are they going to arrest the person who actually took the pictures of Hussain Nawaz? So that is another question.
Yes, well, you see, the charge against Tariq is that you were doing something that is not allowed by law. You were you were taking a video of a person in a private position without his knowledge, and therefore this is a cybercrime. Going to be very difficult to prove that. By that criterion, all the videos that are floating around of people standing and taking videos of all manner of people talking to all manner of things, all those will then fall under the cybercrime law. That is not going to stand. The media, for one, should oppose it, because the media is in the business of taking videos, especially of people who don't know their videos are being taken, because that's what a story is about. So I'm sorry, this is not going to wash But you know, propaganda is propaganda, and the FIA is an arm of the government, and so they will do whatever is in their power to try and make a case or to rig a case. I think Maryam's point is interesting. She's trying to link this with, you recall there was a video or there was a picture
of Hussain
Nawaz sitting in the in the NAB headquarters, I think, before a JIT, before a JIT, and looking very timid and scared and in a solitary sort of environment. And the government at that time played it up, put it all over the place, trying to show how he had been intimidated and how fearful he was, implying in some sense that he was guilty, which is why he was afraid. And that reflected badly. Or the aim was to make sure that Hussain or Hassan, who was it, Hassan? Hussain was painted in a bad color. So my sense is that that comparison is not really valid. This is altogether a different matter from that. The Muslim League at that time had demanded that the government or the JIT release the name of the person who made that. The government did not do that. Eventually the government turned around and said that we have identified who the culprit is and appropriate action has been taken. But they never made it public. They are not going to respond to Maryam on this. I don't think she is going to score any brownie points on this one.
Because we're talking about Maryam Nawaz, obviously. The APC has announced joint rallies on 26th of June in Islamabad. And why Maryam announced her own rallies independently? Do you think she is taking a solo flight?
Well, that's interesting because as we speak, the opposition has announced a strike in Karachi, where all the political parties are going to be jointly doing a rally. In the meanwhile, and this I imagine is in pursuit of the earlier resolution last month that they would get together and do something. Maryam, as you can see, Maryam has always been in favor of more aggressive action. And her frustration has been that there are strong elements within her own party who want to go slow and want to go softly. And then some of her allies, smaller parties, also want to go slowly. And then of course the People's Party also want to go slowly. So apart from Maulana Fazlur Rahman and Maryam, who've been thundering and hammering away at the door and saying we've got to be more aggressive, the others are lukewarm. They want to test the waters. They want to see if there's a deal on the table, and so on and so forth. So I think what Maryam has done is that although Shahbaz Sharif is the president of the party, and in theory he's supposed to announce any policy changes or policy initiatives, I think what Maryam is doing is she said, yeah, that's fine. I am answerable to the head of the party, the rebel of the party, which is Nawaz Sharif, and the vote is for Nawaz Sharif, and I have his authority to go and meet the people. And I am simply going to be putting our case before the people. I am not in any way violating party policy. So she's, as they say, pushing the envelope. She's saying, no, we got to move on. And if you recall the Jalsa in Mandi Bahauddin, none of the big party heavyweights, there was no Shahbaz Sharif.
No uncles.
No biggies, no big uncles. No Khaja Asif, no Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, no Ahsan Iqbal, no Shahbaz Sharif. In Mandi Bahauddin, she had her own lot. She had the younger element who've always been part of her team, Maryam Aurangzeb and Musaddiq Malik and people from Punjab who've been supporting her and are pretty aggressive. So my sense is that Maryam had already said that she would go to Faisalabad, and now she's actually announced, she said that she will be on a continuous tour. So she means to keep the political pressure on the government, because she thinks that without that there will be no voice to be heard, no negotiation. And she knows that ultimately power flows from the people. And if she can continue to demonstrate that the people are with Nawaz Sharif, that the people are with her, the softies in her party will also come under pressure, because when they take soft positions, people don't like it. People want hard lines. People want aggression. So my sense is she's doing what she thinks is right, and this is an internal struggle within the party. You have some hardliners led by Nawaz Sharif, Maryam, and then her allies, like Maulana Fazl. And then there are the others who've been trying to, we can't take the government on at the same time, we can't take the judges on at the same time,
Right.
we can't take the bureaucrats on at the same time, you know, we can't fight with NAB, we can't fight with the establishment, we can't fight with the FIA, we can't fight. And her position is, yes, you can. If the people are with you, then you can take on everyone.
We have the last minute, and I'll just quickly pick this question. Bilawal has been addressing jalsas in FATA in the elections campaign. How effective is this? Do you think this is a revival of Pakistan People's Party?
Sure, whether it is a revival, because the revival would not take place in the periphery of Pakistan. A revival would take place in the mainland, the heartland, and the heartland is Punjab. So the revival isn't taking place there. So he's going to FATA because he thinks that maybe it's a new area. People's Party has never made indents in that region. He's young, he's dynamic. He thinks that there are a lot of people who may have supported the PTI and Imran Khan. He thinks that maybe he can pick up a couple of seats there. I think it's a good strategy. He's a young man, he's got the energy, and so he's focused on targeting a couple of seats in an area where he's never had any seats before. I think it's a good strategy.
Since we'll take a short break, and after that we'll continue our discussion. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more questions for Saeed sir. Welcome back. Saeed sir, now that the opposition has nominated Hafiz Bazenjo as the Senate chairman, and the government has announced, has submitted a resolution against the deputy chairman, do you think that opposition will succeed in this?
Well, you see, a little background is in order. The Sherry Rahman had submitted two resolutions, two notices to the chairman. One was to call a session, and the other was a resolution saying we want to move on a vote of no confidence. And so both things. And the Senate, under instructions obviously from somewhere,
Right.
had tried to delay matters. They said you can't submit two resolutions at the same time. First submit a resolution for a meeting of the Senate, and then once the meeting takes place, then put up a resolution saying you want to move a vote of no confidence. The opposition, in order to move things faster, had done both at the same time and submitted it. So they've already wasted about 10 days arguing whether A is right or B is right. Eventually, the government has succeeded in delaying the issue. And so now, finally, the government has said, okay, we'll accept both resolutions. So we'll call a Senate session 7 days from now. And then in that Senate session, we will have the vote of no confidence. Now, originally, the idea was to have a vote of no confidence only against the chairman. But now the idea is to have a vote of no confidence against both the chairman and the deputy chairman. And the opposition feels that they need to change both. Earlier, Asif Zardari had said that he would want the Noon League to nominate somebody as chairman. But I think the Noon League has decided that it's better not to nominate somebody from their own side, but to nominate somebody from Balochistan. Because Sanjani Saab is from Balochistan, you want to keep smaller provinces on your side, you want to show your sympathies for them, you need their votes, which are very critical. You've seen how the government was able to woo Akhtar Mengal by giving him some money for development and not conceding any of his earlier demands. So the smaller parties are very vulnerable to inducements. And I think this is a crucial vote. It's entirely like, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that if they hadn't given it to Hafiz Bazenjo, Imran Khan might have called him over and said, what do you want? And may have given him some lollipops, and they would have lost 3 to 5 votes. So my sense is it's a good move to make Hafiz Bazenjo. His father was a very distinguished Baloch politician, ex-governor of Balochistan, a man of great integrity and highly respected. And so is his son, Hafiz Bazenjo. Good man, progressive, and will stand by notions of democracy and liberalism, and will be an asset to both the PPP and the Noon League. So I think for that reason, I think Maryam probably wanted one of her younger lot. Couple of people were in the run, Musaddiq Malik and others, but eventually they've opted for Mr. Bazenjo, and I think it's a good choice. So that's what's going to happen. Now the second part of your question is, will they win? Well, you know, the opposition says that they can put together about 60, 65 votes. If they do, well, of course, they're home. Between the PPP and the Noon League, they have 50 votes.
Right.
So they need another 10 or 12 votes. They have the Pakhtunkhwa Milli Party with them. They have Bizenjo Saab with them. They have the ANP with them. And if all come through, they should be okay, they should win. However, the government is going to pull out all the stops. They are going to use everything in their power to stop this from happening. And as you know, other forces will step in to try and convince and arm twist certain senators to jump the lines. Don't forget, Irfan, the voting is secret.
Right.
So nobody knows who voted for whom. So if you give somebody 5 crores and a little bit of arm twisting and some blackmailing, you can probably break some people from the Noon League or from the People's Party or from any of the smaller parties. So it's not by any means that the game is not over. The government will move heaven and earth to stop the opposition from getting its own chairman in. The Senate is very important. Right. All laws have to be ratified by the Senate. The Senate can delay things. And Imran Khan, as you know, is in a hurry. And loss of the Senate would also be very loss to his prestige and to the carefully engineered arrangement that they have put together. They have the establishment with them, they have the Senate, they have the National Assembly, and so on. So, not a foregone conclusion. If there's horse trading, Imran Khan can still thwart the opposition. But if the opposition is solid, then they should get their chairman in.
We're talking about the government and the opposition. The temperature keep rising every day, Saeed, between the opposition and the government. First the arrest and now the refusal to issue production orders. What the government is trying to achieve with this?
Well, you know, Irfan, government's position is very simple. No respite to the opposition. Keep them under pressure. Do not concede any of their demands. Keep them on the run. Keep them under repression so that they don't have time to band together. So this is what they're doing. No production orders. The opposition is constantly baying for production orders so that they have more strength. And the government wants to keep as many opposition people in parliament out of parliament so that the government has easy sailing with the laws that they want to promulgate. Or indeed, some of the people who are behind bars and whose production orders are not being issued are pretty aggressive people. Huh? They have the capacity to stand up in parliament and thunder away. So the government's tactics are nothing doing. Democracy can go to hell. As far as we are concerned, we are going to use these heavy-handed tactics. We are not going to look at tradition. We are not going to look at culture. We are not going to look at norms and rules that have been practiced hitherto in parliament. And so therefore, we are not going to issue production orders. The opposition has to get its act together. The opposition has to talk with the fist. If it doesn't use the fist, the government will not move. Because the government is using the fist and the opposition is sort of trying to dodge it here, dodge it there. That's not going to work.
So now we move to another very good story, and it's a developing story right now. A few days ago, the pre-arrest bail of Hafiz Saeed, right, and 3 others, and today he was arrested. Is there a confusion on the part of the government? What are they doing?
Yes, that's a very valid question. A lot of people are asking that question. As you know, one of the conditions in the FATF is that people like Hafiz Saeed have to be prosecuted and put behind bars because they are banned and so on. Hafiz Saeed earlier on was able to evade any long-term incarceration or prosecution, partly because the judiciary is not on board, and secondly because at that time the establishment was not interested in prosecuting him. But what's happening now is that we have to show that we've done something. So, you know, we arrested him, and but he is entitled to bail. Now, if somebody had gone to the judges and winked and nodded at them, they may not have given bail. But the thing is that there is no evidence against Hafiz Saeed of any act of terrorism. The world thinks that he's a terrorist, but the powers that be in Pakistan have never produced any evidence of terrorism against him. And that's the problem even today. He was released because the judge said, well, where's the evidence? He says that he's doing social work. Has he committed a bomb? Has he planted a bomb in Pakistan? Is there any evidence that he's done something in India? And so on and so forth. No, where is it? Whatever files the Indians have given, according to our people, they're insufficient. The footprints don't all end up at Hafiz Saeed Saab. So my sense is that he walked as a free man, and that was bound to happen. They can arrest him for 30 days under maintenance of public order. That's about the best they can do. I don't think they're in a position to convict him. Now, that's been part of their problem. So now, after he's been released, the likelihood is that obviously a lot of heads will be shaking in the FATF secretariat and say, we told you. They're still protecting him, and so on. So what they've done is they've gone and now arrested him again on some other pretext. And I dare say he'll get bail in that as well. So they will go around to FATF and say, we are trying to do our best, but you have not given us enough evidence to prosecute him. And our courts are independent, we can't do anything about it. So it's going to be a bit of a cat and mouse game. But my sense is that this will be held against Pakistan and its commitment to uproot the jihadi organizations and take action. I don't see that happening. These are people who are long-term assets. To undo them would require a leap of faith. I don't think that is available right now. Even with the best of intentions, that okay, no more jihad, no more crossing borders, no more supporting Kashmiris. And we can believe that because it's become counterproductive now. The last time something like a bomb went off there, you saw what happened. We almost went to war with each other. So there is a realization, but in a sense, the past has handcuffed the administrations. And you know, Hafiz Saeed and company are not people you can shove and push. They demonstrated their ability not just to do social work, but they also demonstrated their ability to garner votes. Between them, they are always able to put together 5,000 to 8,000 votes in most constituencies in Punjab and Kashmir. So therefore, I'm afraid this is not going to look good in the FATA secretariat. Come September, this is going to be on the top of the agenda. Why have you not kept him behind bars? And they will say, we did put him behind bars, the courts are independent, they released him, we put him behind bars again, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be a
let me ask you this question as well, Saeed Sahab. Do you think the timing is very important because Imran Khan is going on an American visit and they want to put a good show in the world that look, this is what we are doing in Pakistan?
Absolutely. For Hafiz Saeed Saab to be released on the eve of Imran Khan's visit to the US was an embarrassment. Okay. Now, I'm sure it could have been managed that he would not have been released, but he was released. And so therefore it was important to arrest him because you certainly don't want Donald Trump saying, but you got that terrorist that we've banned and the United Nations has banned and everybody's banned and he's a bad and you know he's on the loose. What have you done? So we've got him. So, but whether or not they will be believed is a different question.
We'll see that how it goes in America, obviously, when Imran Khan goes for his visit. So we'll take a short break, and I have more questions for you regarding Imran Khan visit. Let's take a short break and put more questions when we're back from the break in front of Steady South. Welcome back, Steady South. Now we talk about the global affairs. As you know that Imran Khan is going to America and that tour is very important for Pakistan. What Shah Mahmood Qureshi is saying about that, let's hear that first.
And we have struggled with some success converting that environment of coercion to cooperation. And I can say today that from isolation we have moved towards invitation. Pakistan has welcomed President Trump's far-sighted decision to pursue a political solution in Afghanistan, which in fact was an endorsement of our own position espoused for a long time. The US contribution was helpful in diffusing the tensions post-Pulwama. We hope that leadership of the two countries in Washington can agree on the imperative of resuming a sustained and result-oriented dialogue between Pakistan and India aimed at peacefully resolving all disputes including the core dispute of Jammu and Kashmir.
Shah Mahmood Qureshi has made some assessment. How accurate he is?
Yeah, he's saying a few things. He's saying, first of all, there was a time that America was turning the screws on Pakistan, and the relationship was on the rocks. Now he's saying the relationship is back on track, and instead of saying do more, we're working together to do
as
more.
a partner.
So they've also stepped back. And he's also saying that earlier on India was pretty successful in trying to isolate Pakistan diplomatically. And he's saying now the situation has changed. Instead of being isolated, we're all working together and cooperating with each other to find a way forward. He's also referred to the fact that Pakistan and American relations are warming up, and that this augurs well for the future. He referred in particularly to the help behind the scenes that the Americans brought to bear on a conflict that was about to get out of hand, on the Pulwama thing.
Right.
And he's expecting that the Americans will continue to play a role in mediating conflict between India and Pakistan. So Shah Mahmood Qureshi now expects cooperation between America and Pakistan to be enhanced. He thinks that America can play a role in helping Pakistan and India move towards some sort of talks.
Right.
Obviously, he had to mention the K word. If you don't mention Kashmir, then nothing gets done. Although I don't think the Americans will wade into the Kashmir waters. But nonetheless, for the sake of making a statement, it's good. The real issue is Afghanistan. That is where America and Pakistan will be working very closely together to find solutions. And I think the main purpose of Shah Mahmood Qureshi's press conference was to say that, look, the Prime Minister is going there, the Prime Minister is going to have a few things on his agenda, and the Americans have a few things on their agenda. And we're going to shake hands and we're going to try and move forward. There is a trust deficit and between both. We don't believe much of what President Trump says, and they don't believe much of what our government says. Both sides have been playing games with each other. So that trust deficit has to be overcome. The purpose of this visit is to pick up the ball in flight at the human level. You know, the Pakistani Prime Minister is taking a picture of Donald Trump, which is a flattering picture of Donald Trump, which he will present to him. Donald Trump is a vain man. The idea is that, you know, you reach out to him at some personal level and try and establish some rapport so that trust can be built. I might tell you that one of the reasons why this meeting has come about is again based on personal relations. Our earlier ambassador to Washington, Ali Siddiqui, knows President Trump's son-in-law, Mr. Kushner, who's been taking some diplomatic initiatives in Saudi Arabia, in Russia and elsewhere. And he's got hold of him for this initiative. And so therefore, Imran Khan will have to charm President Trump. And President Trump, being a hard man, I don't think he gets charmed very easily. But he is a man with a lot of ego. And if he can massage his ego, he may just get the president to believe him that yes, Pakistan will help them find a solution. And in the meanwhile, America needs to restrain India so that India doesn't start fingering Pakistan, as it were, and compelling Pakistan to divert attention from the main focus of its efforts in Afghanistan to its eastern border with India. And I think the question of trade will come up, the question of Kashmir will come up. These are just points to be made. Trump is not going to respond to them. These are just brownie points. The real issue is the assurances by the Pakistanis that we are now looking towards the West. We don't want to get dragged into your conflict with India, with China. All our eggs are not in the Chinese basket. We are turning to you for IMF, we are turning to you for FATF. We are deadly serious. We are abandoning jihad against India. We are going to push the Taliban into giving you a good exit strategy. So what more do you want from us? We are the good guys now. We may have been the bad guys, but we are the good guys now.
The changed people now.
And I think there will be a pitch made also that the person responsible for this 180-degree turn is none other than the one and only General Bajwa. And I dare say some of the credit will have to go there as well. Which is to say that the Americans may look kindly upon the person of the Pakistani army chief and his requirements for continuity.
Talking about Afghanistan peace, what US Special Peace Envoy for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, is saying, let's hear that.
We have made substantive progress on all 4 elements, and that make the framework that we have agreed to for a peace agreement, which is, as you know, assurances on counterterrorism, that's important for the United States and the world, withdrawal of foreign troops, which is important for the Taliban, inter-Afghan negotiations, including a dialogue and an agreement on a roadmap for the political future of Afghanistan, and a complete, comprehensive, permanent ceasefire.
Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad is talking about the final settlement and peace in Afghanistan, and he's talking about the country. So do you think that Pakistan will come out in the flying colors out of this and will achieve something out of this?
Well, you know, Khalilzad has been positive throughout his diplomatic journeys. And now for the first time, the Pakistanis are being positive. The good vibes coming from all quarters, including from the Taliban representatives in Doha. The Burban meeting that took place, the intra-Afghan dialogue which Pakistan hosted, the meeting in Beijing which Pakistan, Russia, America and China discussed Afghanistan and the region. Pakistan was invited, India was not invited. These are big steps. And it appears as though China is now going to play an important role in finding a solution for America. But that will not just be a solution for America. The American solution is 2 things basically. Number 1, make sure that Afghanistan doesn't become a haven for terrorists who might do things against the West in general, and America in particular. No more Osama bin Ladens and no more terrorists, okay? Give us assurances. Second, allow us to leave Afghanistan in a dignified and honorable manner, so that no one can say to us we were defeated in Afghanistan. President Trump has already made a commitment to his own people that he will pull American forces out from but Afghanistan. He will not leave Afghanistan in the lurch so that it becomes a haven of terrorists all over again. Those are the 2 things America wants. China wants something as well. China wants to be part of the game that is now unfolding, which is for the future. The game for the future is raw materials, trade routes, access, markets. Okay, China wants to be part of that action because it's closer, it's on the scene, it's already made some investments there, it's interested in mining, and of course it wants safety for its road and belt initiative, of which CPEC is an integral element. So China has a strong interest. Pakistan's interest is that Afghanistan should not be anti-Pakistan and pro-India. And if there is an intra-Afghan dialogue in which the Taliban have a central role, if not a monopolistic role, that will suit Pakistan admirably, because then the others will not try to destabilize the situation. And the Taliban, as you know, are pro-Pakistan. They are not anti-Pakistan. They always were pro-Pakistan, and they remain pro-Pakistan because we helped them in the last 20 years. So we have some leverage over them. Pakistan, of course, will be expecting that India will have no more role to play there. That may be a little difficult, although there are some people who say that India has lost all initiative and all enterprise in Afghanistan. I don't believe that. The Northern Alliance and the non-Pashtuns are still very pro-India and very anti-Pakistan. So we have to wait and see how that turns out. Iran has a role, and so on. Russia has a role. Russia doesn't want Russian and Kyrgyz and other terrorists hanging around with bases in Afghanistan. So it also has an interest. So all these countries are now trying to effect a situation, an arrangement where their interests can be protected respectively, in which there is peace and stability. Because without peace and stability, and if there's conflict again, then everything will go helter-skelter again. So that is what they're trying to aim at by September, October of this year, when the presidential elections are scheduled to be held. My sense is the optimism is, there's too much optimism that they will get a deal. That's my sense. I think there's many a slip between the cup and lip. I think there's a lot of vested interests that are not interested in a long-term peace settlement, which is pro-Taliban. I think there are a lot of interests that don't want the Americans to leave. They want American money and American support for the Afghan military. So there will be hitches. And I'm not sure that they will come to an agreement that will be stable and enduring. They may announce something in September, October, but then November, December, things may go awry again. I don't think there will be the sort of settlement the Americans want. I don't think they'll get that. They will have to retreat in a bit of a hurry, or they will have to stay there. At the very least, they will have to keep putting in $7 to $8 billion a year. So it's still work in progress. I don't expect such great thundering positive news by September. There may be some movement, but to think that by September, October, the road will be clear and everybody will be happy and it will be all hunky-dory and the elections will take place, there will be a constitution where everybody agrees and the Taliban and everybody else will start sharing power and all that will happen in the next 6 months. I don't think so.
Thank you very much, Sir. That is all we have from London studios. We'll meet again next week. Please do send us your feedback. Goodbye for now.